Dear students, welcome back. In the previous session, we have discussed about precision handling, which is a type of prehension. Okay, now in this session, we are going to discuss about functional position of the wrist and hand. Okay, so why this functional position of the wrist and hand is required, and how this functional position of the wrist and hand is described. So all these things we are going to discuss in this session. Okay, and it is very much difficult to isolate any one of the joint or function as being singularly important among all those examined. So that means every joint in the hand is very important in their function. But overall, we have to consider the function, the grasp we have to consider. So that means although all the joints are very important, and for grasping which kind of position of the hand and wrist is required, that thing we have to consider. Okay, and everybody will have some little doubt that hand cannot function either as a manipulator or as a sensory organ unless an object can enter the palmar surface, and unless moderate finger flexion and thumb apposition are available to allow sustained contact. Okay, application of either an active muscular or passive tendinous flexor force to the digits requires the wrist to be stabilized in moderate extension and ulnar deviation. Okay, so taking into all these actions into account, the functional position is described. So why this functional position is needed means which helps in optimal function of the hand. Okay, and also if you want to immobilize the wrist and hand in this position, then after immobilization, the recovery of the patient to his or her activities of daily living is as early as possible than if you immobilized in any other position. So for that reason, this functional position of the wrist and hand is very much necessary. Okay, now how this functional position is described? Yes. So in the functional position of the wrist and hand, the first thing you have to maintain is the wrist complex is in slight extension. The wrist complex is in slight extension, and this extension may be up to 20 degrees of extension, and slight ulnar deviation. So slight ulnar deviation, that is 10 degrees of ulnar deviation, and fingers are moderately flexed. This is the third one. Fingers are moderately flexed at MCP joint. So MCP joint 45 degrees, and PIP joint, this is 30 degrees, and slightly flexed at DIP joint. Okay, the wrist position, so here the wrist position optimizes the power of the finger flexor so that hand closure can be accomplished with the least possible effort. And it is also the position in which all wrist muscles are under equal tension. Okay, so this is the functional position of the wrist and hand. So the first one you have to do is the wrist complex in slight extension up to 20 degrees, and the second one ulnar deviation up to 10 degrees, and next one is finger flexors, that is at MCP joint 45 degrees, and PIP 30 degrees, and slight flexion at the DIP. So this is the functional position of the wrist and hand. Thank you.